In this video, I will explain everything about firing on the move with vehicles in COH3 and provide micro tips to help get the best performance from your vehicle. But first, I need to distinguish what actually counts as moving with vehicles. You may notice that turning on the spot, which is also known as pivoting, doesn't turn off buffs that require the vehicle to be stationary, like the healing aura from the DAC med truck or vehicle self-repairs. To test this further, I created a mod and gave the 221 0 moving accuracy. When testing this in-game, you can see it still damages the enemy while pivoting. But while driving around, it does nothing. This confirms that pivoting does not count as moving for vehicles in COH3. In COH2, if you hit stop on your vehicle, it would instantly get the stationary performance, even while it was still decelerating. Is this also the case in COH3? I further modded the 221, giving it very slow deceleration on top of the 0 moving accuracy. Testing this in game by driving up to a squad and hitting stop. As you can see, the modded 221 does 0 damage while it is decelerating, so a vehicle has to be completely halted apart from pivoting to avoid the firing on the move penalties. Now I'm going to group the vehicles by category and compare their moving performance. Let's look at the moving penalties of vehicles that are only equipped with machine guns first, going from best to worst. The Weasel and 221 both have 0.75 moving accuracy, in other words, a 25% accuracy penalty when firing on the move. The Dingo has 0.9 accuracy and 0.66 burst. Bursts are how long the machine gun fires before taking a break, so a shorter burst means fewer bullets are fired, leading to less damage being done. These two penalties combined means the Dingo only does 73% of its normal DPS when it's firing on the move. The 4x4 has 0.75 accuracy and 0.75 burst, which is 71.8% of its normal DPS. The M3 and 251 half-tracks both have 0.5 moving accuracy. The 250 has 0.725 accuracy and 0.375 burst, which is equivalent to 47% of its stationary DPS. The Grauschützen has 0.75 accuracy and 0.5 burst, which is 44.5% of its stationary DPS. And stone dead last is the Quad, that has 0.25 accuracy and 0.5 burst, which is equivalent to 18.8% of its stationary DPS. Those DPS numbers apply to shooting at infantry, which has a target size of 1. But the smallest vehicle in the game is the Grauschützen with a target size of 6. If we take the vehicle with the second worst moving accuracy, the 251, and use its far accuracy value, it is still 93% to hit the smallest vehicle in the game in the worst possible scenario. This demonstrates that the moving accuracy penalties don't have much of a negative impact on small arms when they are being shot at a vehicle. But a shortened burst length does. In this demonstration, we are looking at the time to kill a Dingo with a 250. One is moving, the other is stationary. The moving 250 took almost twice as long to kill the Dingo. This shows that the moving burst length penalties can matter a lot in these early game vehicle-on-vehicle fights, so try to remain stationary with these vehicles that have moving burst length penalties. The higher the burst length penalty, the more important it is to stay still. The Quad is kind of an exception in this category because it has such a high moving accuracy penalty and bad accuracy to begin with, especially at long range. This means against one of its most common opponents, the 250, which has a target size of 16, it has a decent chance to miss when firing on the move. I thought there might be a micro trick with the Quad, to move immediately after a burst had begun, with the hope the burst would continue, giving you a full duration burst with none of the moving penalties. But whenever you start to move, even pivot, machine gun bursts get interrupted, so moving immediately after a burst has started does not work. And if you want to min-max, you should try to move your vehicle with a machine gun in the gap between bursts instead. This burst interruption, when the vehicle is forced to move or pivot, is also why it is so effective to run your infantry in circles around ultralights in the early game. Their bursts keep getting interrupted, meaning they do very little damage, and your squad getting some side or rear armor hits is icing on the cake. Though running in circles does not interrupt the bursts of machine guns that are able to fire in any direction, like the one on the quad. There are some extra moving penalties that we haven't discussed so far, and they are applied to a weapon's scatter. Here is a brief explanation of scatter. When a shot fails to roll a hit through the accuracy system, it scatters, meaning it will randomly land somewhere close to the intended target, giving the shot a second opportunity to land and deal damage. Small arms fire has no AoE, so it can't hit through scatter, but scatter does apply to basically every vehicle-mounted gun that isn't a machine gun. Scatter angle is how far the shot can deviate off to the side, and scatter distance is how far the shot can deviate forwards or backwards. Both of these get increased by a multiplier when the vehicle is moving, making moving scatter shots more likely to land further away from the intended target. Most of the ballistic type weapons that I will be covering here have accuracy values that are tuned to shoot at tanks, and in COH3, tanks are about 20 times larger than infantry. This makes it uncommon for ballistic weapons to roll accuracy hits on infantry, meaning most shots at infantry are scatter shots, and having a low amount of scatter will make these shots land on infantry consistently. I didn't fully understand how the moving scatter penalty worked, so I created a mod where I changed both of the moving scatter penalties on the Sherman from 1.5 up to 15. That resulted in shots missing wildly off to the side, and this demonstrates the moving scatter angle penalty matters a lot. Then I changed the angle multiplier back to the normal 1.5, but left the distance at a whopping 15. This resulted in the shots still landing very close to the infantry, which I didn't expect. One of the options in scatter stats is distance scatter max, which for the Sherman is set at 6, roughly meaning the shot can land a maximum of 6 range forward or backward of the intended target. And based on the results from my mod, it appears the moving scatter penalty to distance gets applied before this maximum limit is enforced. This means the moving scatter distance penalty is basically irrelevant. The only time it will matter is when chasing a squad at super close range. Relic have set the movement scatter angle multiplier and distance multiplier to be the same value for every vehicle in the game, so I will combine them and call them the moving scatter penalty or moving scatter multiplier going forwards. With scatter now explained, let's look at the moving performance of all other vehicles grouped by type. Starting out with autocannon type vehicles. These vehicles have high accuracy, which allows them to roll direct hits on infantry, but they also have the potential to scatter and deal AoE damage to units. Autocannons have very bad AoE stats, so this makes them sort of a middle ground between machine guns and generalist tank guns. Going from the worst moving performance in this category to the best. The worst is the CMP Polston, which has a pathetic 0.25 moving accuracy. However, the Polston's Vet 1 ability, Fragmentation Rounds, doubles its AoE radius, and this allows it to hit infantry much more reliably while it's moving, roughly doubling its damage in this demonstration. The second worst in this class is the Flak Feeling, and it has loads of moving penalties, 0.5 accuracy, 0.5 burst, 1.5 cooldown, and 1.25 scatter. And this is the opposite of the Polston. Don't use its Vet 1 against infantry because it halves the flak feeling's AoE radius. In the middle is the Humber with 0.8 accuracy, 0.8 burst, and 1.25 scatter. Those all sound relatively insignificant, but its machine gun drops to 33% of its regular DPS while it's moving. Almost every vehicle-mounted machine gun that I haven't covered so far has 0.5 moving accuracy, regardless if it is coaxial, hull, or pintle. So as I continue this video, I will only be mentioning a vehicle's machine gun when it has a different penalty from 0.5 moving accuracy. The 250/9 has 0.5 accuracy and 1.25 scatter. The 8-Rad and the L6 both have 0.75 accuracy and 1.25 scatter. Stepping up in size, we have the two anti-air tanks. The Whirlwind has 0.75 accuracy, 0.5 burst, and 1.25 scatter. The Crusader AA has 0.5 accuracy and a very high 2.5 scatter. Now moving on to light vehicles that are equipped with generalist main guns. Here the focus starts to shift away from targeting infantry and more towards targeting vehicles. All of these have low firing on the move penalties. The Greyhound and Stuart with 0.75 moving accuracy, and the Karo has 0.85. All three have 1.25 moving scatter. Unfortunately, the Greyhound is one of the few vehicles with an extra penalty on a machine gun. Its coaxial machine gun has an extra 0.5 moving burst penalty. Now you may be thinking, hang on here Tightrope, I see these vehicles miss all the time. You must be overlooking something. All three of these have a somewhat low 0.035 far accuracy value, which is similar to most medium and heavy tanks. But when you consider that these three are usually shooting at light vehicles that are smaller and harder to hit, this means they have a pretty high chance to miss at longer ranges, even before they start moving. I feel this is a good stage to take a break from the stats and demonstrate how to maximize damage when chasing retreating infantry with a vehicle. When chasing a retreating squad, you want your vehicle to follow behind them as closely as possible. This way you are using the weapon's near accuracy value, and this maximizes your chance to hit the squad. Infantry retreat at 6 speed. All light vehicles have a max speed higher than 6. This speed advantage helps you to close the distance on a retreating unit to increase accuracy. It also reduces the impact of losing ground to something like a pathfinding inefficiency or encountering terrain your vehicle cannot cross but infantry can. But be careful when you are chasing. If you overtake the squad, especially when they phase through your vehicle, this can interrupt the gun from firing while it rotates to face the squad again, causing you to lose time dealing damage. And if the vehicle has a hull gun, overtaking the retreating unit will mean the hull gun has nothing to shoot at, resulting in less damage being done. So whenever possible, try to position your vehicle such that the hull gun is able to fire. Roads can help with chasing infantry, since vehicles get a 40% speed bonus when they are on a road, whereas infantry get no speed bonuses on roads. This speed difference on roads can enable tanks that are usually too slow to keep up with retreating infantry. In COH3, when chasing with a fast vehicle, I would right-click ahead of the squad I was chasing and hit stop occasionally to modulate the distance. This way you don't accidentally right-click the squad, giving an attack command that interrupts your momentum. Right-clicking ahead can also give you a bit of buffer time if you need to squeeze in a command with a different unit mid-chase. But in COH3 this doesn't work as well, because hitting stop seems to interrupt the weapon from firing, and this drops your DPS. Notice every time I hit stop, the machine gun burst gets interrupted. This makes modulating your speed in a chase scenario more difficult in COH3, and I much prefer the COH2 style of stop command. The stop command interrupting the firing cycle also makes using team weapons much more annoying in COH3. Getting back into the stats, and we are looking at the moving penalties of the light vehicles that are anti-tank focused. Going from worst to best, we have the Marder that has 0.5 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. The 221 Panzerbuchse has 0.5 accuracy and 1 scatter. The 221 Panzerbuchse is also the only vehicle in the game that has a moving start and end time. I briefly tried to figure out what moving start and end time did through modding, but I failed, so who cares. The 75mm M3 has 0.75 accuracy and 2 scatter, and the Chaffee has 0.75 accuracy and 1.25 scatter. Sticking with anti-tank vehicles, but going heavier, all three of these have the same 0.75 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. Though the Pintle machine gun upgrade on the Stug is one of the few that deviates from the norm. It has 0.6 moving accuracy and 0.5 moving burst. And the two big guns, the Archer and the Elephant, have the same 0.5 moving accuracy and 1.5 moving scatter. Moving on to the Generalist Medium tanks, going from worst to best. The Panzer IV Command tank in both high explosive and armor piercing modes has 0.5 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. The majority of the pack, consisting of the Panzer IV, Sherman, 76mm Sherman and Grant, all have 0.75 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. The Panzer III has 0.85 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. Both of the Crusaders have 0.85 accuracy and 1.25 scatter. Finally, the Easy 8 has the best moving performance of any unit in COH3. It has no moving penalties at all on its main gun. Moving up to the heavy tanks, the Tiger has 0.5 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. The rest of the pack, including the King Tiger, Pershing, Churchill, Black Prince and Matilda, all have 0.75 accuracy and 1.5 scatter. Now switching to the vehicles whose projectile is much slower moving and flies with a parabolic path instead of blasting in a straight line like the other vehicles we have covered so far. This group consists of the Scott, Stug D, Centaur, Brumbier and Bulldozer. The Stummel cannot fire while moving. As for the rest, when chasing, they don't seem to be able to land a shot on another moving vehicle, even though they may have accuracy and moving accuracy stats that indicate this should be possible. There is something about the projectile type that stops accuracy hits from working on these vehicles. So when you're in a chasing scenario with these vehicles, your best option is to stick to the enemy as closely as possible. This minimizes the projectile's travel time, allowing for some AoE hits to land. Remember that these vehicles have deflection damage, meaning that when they fail to penetrate, they still do a portion of their normal damage, instead of doing nothing. 15% on a deflection from the Scott and Stummel, 25% on the others. Here is a tip for hitting a retreating squad with these vehicles. Turn on hold fire to prevent the vehicle from auto-attacking. Then attack round ahead of the target's path to try and catch the squad as they move over that spot. I modded the Centaur to have a 50 moving scatter multiplier, and this was the result. So moving accuracy doesn't matter on vehicles with this type of projectile, but moving scatter clearly does. The Scott has no moving scatter penalty. The Centaur has 1.25 and the other three have 1.5 moving scatter. Let's finish up with flame tanks. I didn't know if moving accuracy would matter on a flamethrower, or if it was simply AoE damage they spit out. So I created a mod. set the machine gun on the L6 to 0 damage, and the moving accuracy of its flamethrower down to 0. With these changes, the L6 flamethrower does 0 damage to the squad while it's moving, demonstrating that moving accuracy is indeed vital for a flame tank's DPS. All 3 of the flamethrowers on these vehicles have the same 0.5 moving accuracy. Now you are an expert on firing on the move with vehicles, and if you haven't already, make sure to check out the companion video about firing on the move with infantry. If you want to help the production of videos like this, I hope you consider coming on board as a Patreon backer.